think that going back to the idea is, it's about we, not me, is the notion where people got to, got to understand family, got to understand community, and got to, if they're part of that, while they're trying to be something meaningful, let's say in the workplace or whatever they are, then at the end of the day, you will leave a legacy, right? But at the end of the day, you can't leave a legacy if you're not connected.
My name is Tiffany Alexander, and this is Unveiling Journeys. I'm going to take you just on a mini journey myself. A little bit about me. I love people. I love meeting new people. I love networking with people. And I find most often whenever I hang out with them, I'm like, "Oh, you're so cool. Someone introduced you to me. Who else do you know that I need to know? But also, I bet I know some people that you need to know. And I'd love to introduce you to them." And what's happened is I've met some of the coolest people, the coolest, kindest, just amazing people. And I am now at the point where I cannot contain them. I need the world to know them. I need to everybody to know about what they're doing, what they're up to, what they've done, and all, the impact they continue to make, and then their heart behind it all. So that is how I meet all of the fun people that I have on my show. So with that, I am excited to introduce Adrian, introduced through a friend, and man, your story's so fun. I was like, will you come be on my show and tell people what you're working on and what you're all about? So let's do that. Thank you again for coming, and let's do this. Tell everybody who you are and what you're up to right now.
Well, my name's Adrian Skeggs. I'm obviously Australian. I actually live on a little island of 450 people, 700 or 400 miles off the coast of New South Wales. And I grew up here. And I actually, when I was born into this lovely world, I only had a mother who was 22 years bedridden. So it was a very struggle street sort of thing. At the end of the day, I didn't have a father. He left. So the beautiful thing about that was that when you grow up in an island where you can walk around with bare feet and experience the thing, the whole island was your experience, and the community embraced me because my mother was so sick. So I think, sometimes when people start in life, it's what they gain and the experiences and I suppose the things that sort of make them or are part of their fiber. And I think what I took for granted, was what might have been simple things, but really for me, a lot of other people had things. Whereas for me, the experience of having a mother who loved you and stuff, and was dedicated to you and stuff, who really couldn't get out and see you do things, to me, I misunderstood it, and I was actually embarrassed by it because everyone else had their parents out there and doing things. So I think, you know, the community got behind me. And in my teenage years, my mother died when I was 13, and actually the island community sponsored me to go to boarding school. So it was a lovely gesture in regards to response for her, but also in that time I'd become a little bit of a wayward, and I'd been a little bit of a firebug and that. So I think part of the idea of sending me to the boarding school was preservation for the island, but also my mother was a gospel singer. She was amazing. She just was. And I think, again, I didn't realize that I loved her
Oh,
until she died. And because I was so embarrassed, you know, how you start life, sometimes people have different sort of aspects and things they do. But for me, when I look back on it, I've turned out okay. I'm now a father and stuff like that. I'm being the example to my boys. Yeah, just I thought I'd share that there as part of the inertia of who
yeah,
I am.
yeah. Well, tell me, because we'll unpack your story a little bit more after you go into boarding school. What are you up to right now? Your projects you're in?
Well, one of the things I learned, which is probably what people, people have different ways that they embrace and connect with people. A sense of community when you're on a small place is something you can take anywhere. So for me, I was very blessed. I went to did a teaching degree, and then I actually started playing sport, and I started playing a game called rugby. And suddenly I played representative rugby, and then suddenly I played for my country, Australia, and it was just an amazing experience. But what the amazing experience was that when I actually played for the country, I was in Canada and we played against the Canadian team. And I had a photo of my mother in one pocket and a photo of the island in the other pocket. And what happened was there's sheer respect for the opportunity I was given that. But when I went and then saw the world through sport, when I came back home to Australia, I realised that what sport had given me also was the ability to have my community, obviously instincts, but more importantly, I could connect with any person in the corporate world because sport gave me the profile. But I kept myself true to my community, obviously niche, and therefore people were open to me because I was genuine about understanding where it was coming from. So I think that what people need, in my world, when you've got a trusted network, you can transfer value, and the trust is also being real to who you are. And there's things I've learned in life, like sweeping the sheds was always something that in sport, when you played a game, that you actually swept the sheds, which means you can be humble to do anything simple in life. I've always says realised that the fact is, well, it's a funny analogy, but uh, keep your eye upon the donut, not the hole, because the donut's reality. And people these days are all caught up with things around them, which is, for them, they find reasons not to be real. So, I think sport taught me a lot, but also, going back there, what I do now is that I listen to people. I always ask 5 questions. When I go to people, any person I chat to, I ask 5 questions. First of all, what's your uniqueness? What do you believe that you bring to this world? And if you bring the benefit to this world and the benefits are X, okay, I can ask them, and then how do you sustain that? So potentially that's how do you monetize that? So what's your perception of how do you do that? And what's that look like? Thirdly, show me how you do that. So it's a case study. So who's your ideal client? Who do you want to embrace, right? And then fourthly, I always ask them, so what do you think the gaps are? Okay, so if the gaps are your needs are X, so if it's new markets, new people, it's the stuff there. And the last one's probably really the key one is say, where do you want to be at the end of 25 or in 5 years' time? Now, when you ask all those questions, you get the sentiment of saying their perceived value of what they think their uniqueness is, but also how that was sustained. But in their case studies, you can understand how they go through that journey and create that value. And suddenly I see the gaps. So what it is, it's when you ask those questions, you're inviting people to share their lives and share their experiences, but also you say to, well, consider this. And when you use that sort of soft language in this current day, most of the time you find an amicable way to form friendships, but more importantly is you can create value in the business world, but also in life. I do a heap of community stuff. And I also want to be the example to young people over here because I came from a little island and played for my country. And now I've got a 6-year-old boy and I'm showing him, what good looks like from my time with him. And we just love
Yeah.
living.
Yeah. And you're doing so many great things, and some of the incredible people we've met that have introduced me to you. Let's do this. I like to unpack everybody's journey a tiny bit more. Let's circle back around to kind of the beginning of this. Whenever the community got all together and was able to send you to school, and then you started to go play sport with them. Like, what started to happen in that part of your life, and like the next stages you moved into?
Well, when I got sent to boarding school, discipline wasn't about right or wrong. Discipline's about how you carry yourself. And at the end of the day, it's given the opportunity to say if experiences are presented to you, it's how you understand, what is that experience to you and how and what are the lessons you got to learn from it. But people dive in, they sort of rush to brush and say, bang, I'll go in there. Well, I learned about being part of a team. I also learned about being a leader, but also I learned at the end of the day is leave a legacy. So for me, sport was a great vehicle, which then I took into the business place. So for me, it's all those sorts of things where like when you go and look at someone's LinkedIn profile, don't look at what they are, look down below and say, what do they serve in their community? So if they're doing something like Rotary or whatever it is, the first thing you do is when you get on a call, say, well, how's Rotary going? You're not worried about them being a CEO. So you can strike a note with people by being personal, but also always ask for their advice and help. That's what you usually do. So for me, little lessons, but for me, that's how I'm sort of carrying myself now, and it's it's proving
Well,
very
that's
favorable.
incredible. some of these incredible lessons, I believe, sports helps that because you have to play along and team and work through the highs and the lows of it all. And at what point, um, because like a little bit of your journey is like, wow, I got better and better and better. And now you all of a sudden got to go play for your country. Like, do you feel like that was just because you're naturally gifted or you just try so darn hard?
No, no, you when you've got a mother that was 21 years bedridden, had me at 46, what I got from her was a massive determination, resilience. The idea is, it's not what you have, it's what you are. And at the end of the day, for me, it was that ability to, when you get knocked over, is you jump back up, but you got to be, get the end of stay of take things in and understand, what's your purpose in regards to that, and what's the end game. If you understand that, then along the way, ask for advice. Again, because you measure twice, cut once. And I think from my point of view is that you know I had a tremendous tenacity and all that sort of stuff to achieve things. But it's also how you achieve things, right? And so I think there's a lot of lessons. Why the sport thing is now, I just look at people who are too prescriptive now. They're all, it's all about, well, is technology this and technology this or whatever it is. So therefore, what's going to enable you to have a better life, but also when you talk to people, how are you going to enable them to have a better experience?
I, f- I feel like you're wise in so much wisdom of all of the people that you've been able to be surrounded by, and then have such a great demeanor and all of this wisdom that you want to pass on to so many people to really make that mark in the world. And I appreciate that you always carry that about you. Can I ask you a crazy
Yeah.
question? All right, when we got
Yeah.
introduced, they said, "You got to meet my friend," and they did not call you Adrian. Tell everybody about your nickname.
Well, I'm quite a big guy, and when I was young, I actually shot up, and my nickname is Moose, and I'm not quite sure. There was one description of it was the way I dance, so I don't know how Moose dances, but it might have been that. But really, it's how I shot up. But I think there was a few little misdemeanors along the way when I was young, which therefore the Moose tag might have been adapted to that. And actually, when I actually played for Australia in Canada, I actually went and saw a real live moose, and I said, well, me and you, brother, were much of the same, but certainly I know where I've come from, and I'm certainly looking at you now. So yeah, it's there could be a few definitions, but
There
I'll
you
I'll leave
go.
it at that.
What do you want people to call you when they hang out with you? Moose, that's all
Moose,
right. I was like,
moose.
"Oh, wait, I
I'm
totally
all,
introduced him by the wrong
yeah,
name. Oh my gosh." Okay.
that's all right. That's all right. Because at the end of the day, what it is that I can walk into boardrooms and stuff like that, and I like people to know that
Yeah.
I'm real. And I've got some of my best connections in the world, rare animals and Navy, and say, hi,
Yeah.
mates, how you going? They identify that from an island kid who had a struggle but did good.
Wonderful. Now, moving on from sports, what were some of these little side curricular things that you did? Because your whole life wasn't just that. Like, unpack a little bit of the side story here for me.
Well, at the end of the day, when you look at things there, when you look at people now and they look at the world or they look at business and stuff, I like to I like to think that, when you're chatting to people these days and you're asking questions of that, sometimes what it is I always look at, maybe four key areas. And I say, well, the first thing is that how do they articulate themselves? So when people articulate themselves, what do they articulate? Is it about me or is it about we? Right? So in other words, you know where they sit. Secondly, is it the sentiment. So is it the sentiment of how they feel about themselves and how where they are potentially feels about them. So the idea is, well, all those considerations, perceptions, their perceptions of value or their perceptions of where they sitting in their life and stuff might be a little bit distorted in regards to saying, you know, if your goals are X and your perceptions are this is where you are now, maybe you need to recalibrate in regards to some things. So sometimes it's about understanding that. And in doing that, the last word is consideration. So what are they considering in regards to, how they're going to be successful on that journey and who they're going to invite on that journey. So sentiment, perceptions, consideration, articulation, they're not definitive words, but when you have a conversation with the people and you can go through that, what could come out of it is gold nuggets. And I think that's sort of it's not saying that's gospel for me, but certainly it's very close to what I like to have
I love
conversations
it.
around.
You find yourself to be a smidge of a networker, right? Like, I think some of the amazing people you've connected me to, you keep a real strong bond with them by hanging out and
Oh yeah, yeah. I think again, I have no qualms in getting. I feel comfortable that what I do now is that when I go through and I have those 5 questions and understand people, what it is to me is that they want the biggest hurdle a lot of people have got is to say, well, I've got a business aspiration, I've got this, right? And what you need to understand, the currency of relationships or key people of interest in those industries and stuff, well, it can accelerate you to where you want to go. But the first thing you want to do is get advice. And so the end of the day is, again, it goes back to the perception. I'm looking to achieve X. I'm ringing up to you today to get your advice on, this is what I'm doing. What is that close to the mark and where is going to help me achieve my goals? And I think that to me is, it goes back to the uniqueness of having that personal relationship with people where you can unpack things and then pack them back up again with a different insight, from people and obviously different experiences, how you're going to achieve your
yeah.
success.
What's, some of your favorite things you like doing right now with the time that you have?
I think I'm a very late parent, and I think the privilege of being a father is just really, has blown me away. I've got a 6-year-old here. He's going to be like, like some days I mentor, some days I get humbled and all sorts of stuff. But I think what it is the amazing thing of my beautiful wife and my amazing boy is that, I just want him to have all the experiences in the world. So I spend most of my time creating good
Yeah.
experiences for him. And I think what it is my wife, we just love the journey. And I think that, what I'm saying is that when I grow up here, I want him to have that. But he's got 2 healthy parents that love him to bits, whereas I had one that loved me to bits but couldn't do much. So I think what it is that, he's very, very lucky, but also so am
Yeah,
I.
100%. The
Yeah.
things that you do make such an impact in the community. You're kinda set. I mean, like, why do you keep showing up? Why do you keep trying so hard for all the people that you try so hard for?
Mainly because this world has challenges all around it, and for me to live in a community, for my boy to live in the community, I want him to feel like that he's part of a community that sort of wants to
Yeah,
make an impact. So the first thing to do is you've got to understand your legacy. So if the kids don't know, I'm actually I'm the community sort of volunteer liaison sort of person for the school. And what I do for them is, I try and help them get the stage where, we live on an island. So, for example, I've organised where they take a boat trip out there and look at coral bleaching, which is coral poisoning. So it's
yeah,
their future. So they've got to understand what that is. I bring in people to talk to them about life because, if they're unique in their life. So at the end of the day, they just went on a tour to the mainland. These kids, and these kids walk around barefoot all day long, and they went to this amazing place. And so therefore they go see, sporting teams and they go to museums and stuff like that. Some of my friends who are high up are touching them. So the idea is when they touch them, they sit there and say, well, why are you here at this war museum today? This is what war is about. Well, I'm the Rear Admiral of the Navy. I command 30,000 people a day and I talk to 30,000 people a day. They live in a community of 450 people. So they're getting lessons. But for me, what I try and do is say to them, I want them to, understand the privilege of living on an island and we're all living there together and just, try and look at things differently. And so that's why I create the experiences for the young people as well as the
Yeah,
community
yeah.
people.
At the moment, sometimes some people are thinking like, "I love your heart in this. I wanna connect with you." Like, what's your favorite way that people can reach out to you, um, that you can just celebrate and share in that, and you could show them how to make more of an impact or, and more?
Well, I'm always, I think LinkedIn for me, yeah, it doesn't tell my story. I mean, it's like a business card for, where people can connect, but I think it's how people connect. I always, when I go and connect with people, I don't have any problems connecting on LinkedIn. But the first thing I say to people, I say, "Look, I'd love to connect to you to learn more about you, your work, right?" So you always make it about them. So if people say to me, "Look, I'd love to connect to learn more about you," and that's the stuff and that stuff, and then share some ideas and discuss any synergy. Well, that's what you're inviting people to learn. But also for me, it's, I get inquisitive, and if I get inquisitive, then I'm open
Yeah,
to connect.
perfect. Can you tell
Yeah.
me something, that you wanna share with everybody, that's on the horizon? Like, what's in the future?
Well, I think at the end of the day, today's not a dress rehearsal for where we're going. I think that, you know, going back to the idea is, it's about we, not me. Is the notion where people got to understand family, got to understand community, and got to and you know if they're part of that while they're trying to be something meaningful, let's say in the workplace or whatever they are, then at the end of the day you will leave a legacy, right? But at the end of the day, you can't leave a legacy if you're not connected. So I think people just, it's understanding of getting out. There's a lot of people there who've got self interest. A lot of people got egos. We've all got egos, and I think at the end of the day, uh, you know, just be a good example. There's no written law into what good looks like in the world, but I think the end of the day is reaching out and embracing people in a way where you're inviting them to understand more about you and understand, and vice versa. It's just a simple way of getting being connected and understanding that how many
I
good
love
people
it.
are out there. You know,
All right, let's do
yeah.
this. I'm gonna wrap up, but I'm gonna let you leave everybody with your favorite nugget, your favorite words of wisdom that you want to share with everyone.
Well, I think it goes back to the I think the old saying, the basic saying about the donut. You know, this yeah, people, they want more context, or they want to know this and they want that sort of stuff. But being real, being real and being true to yourself is far more important than sitting there worrying about what technology is going to enable you or what LinkedIn's going to say and all this sort of stuff. You know, and I think what it is just for people to say, understand that um, sometimes storytelling and telling people about that stuff is just so key, because people want to know. You know, I always say to people, don't bring your scrapbook to well, I'm not interested about that. I'm only interested in where you're going, right? But the first part of that is you need to understand the scrapbook to understand the fibre and who they are now, right? So potentially it's a shop window. So always go back and say, well, like you're saying to me here, what are some of those life lessons? Well, for me, that's lays the foundation for what potentially are. But what I want to see is aspiration, how they go about things and how they carry themselves now to say, well, how much am I going to entertain of them in their life? And so, and I think that's it. It's all about we, not me. And people can be more open to that. I think that, that's, you're going to have a better life.
Wonderful. This has been awesome. I appreciate you coming in and sharing your heart and your story, and I'm excited for everything that you're paving and community and pouring it into your little boy and your family. So, thank you, my friend Moose.
Yeah, not a problem.
I love it. Thank you again for your time. And then everybody who's here, thank you for staying and hanging out. I look forward to hanging out with you soon on another episode. Reach out if you just want to connect with some amazing people on LinkedIn. All the social media links are down below for you to connect and hear more of the nuggets that Adrian said on this episode. Have a great day, everybody.